Earlier, Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke cast his vote. Adeleke voted at Unit 009, Ward 02, Abogunde Sagba in Ede North Local Government Area shortly after arriving at the polling unit at about 8:30 a.m. The governor, who is seeking another term in office, was among the early voters at the polling unit. After casting his ballot, Adeleke expressed confidence in the outcome of the election.
Police officer from Port Harcourt, they brought him, the APC Osun brought it to come and do a job to destroy my town agent so that people will not vote. So I want the Inspector Police to take note and do the needful. See, Police Commissioner election, DIG election, she take note. And all my people there should watch out. That's number one. And I have it on authority of information that they don't want to go through the normal process of from units to ward and to local government. They want to just take it all the way to the collation center, and that is not acceptable. They must follow the rules, and that is why I'm urging my people to watch out. And I know, by the special grace of God, I'm winning this election.
In the meantime, other gubernatorial candidates also cast their votes in the ongoing election. The APC's Bola Oyebamiji has voted in his polling unit in Ikiri, Irewolu local government area, where he is set to cast his ballot. ADC's Najim Folashayo Salam also cast his vote at Ironyanyo Open Space Polling Unit 13, Elejibo D. Elejemo Ward, Ejibo local government area.
The election is going peacefully. The INEC are doing their job. At the same time, the security people are tending where they want to parties that are one or two places where they want to cause trouble. The police are in charge. Things are going on. I want to appeal to the people that it is important that they need to conduct themselves and they need to vote peacefully. The security people has to be in charge. The IREV too, I think so far they have a payment operation, and I want to believe that things will go on well.
It used to be a free and fair election with no rigging, manipulation, a level playing ground. I trust my God that I'm going to win the election.
Thank you very much. Sir, finally, sir, some question that at your own polling units, they had to arrest people buying votes.
Here, well, you are just coming. Definitely it cannot be my party. We are not into that. We canvass for the people, we let them know our programs, and that is exactly what we do.
To discuss the elections and other related issues emanating from Osun State, we're joined live in the studio by former Lagos coordinator, Ticket Back Movement, Ayoyinka Oni. And also joining us for this conversation are the chairman of the Progressives Forum, Andrew Abu, and Public Affairs Analyst Professor Simeon Nnah, including Martin Obono, who is the Executive Director, TAP Initiative. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us to discuss this.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let me start with the gentleman. Of course, first, we're going to look at it from the angle of vote buying, violence, voter intimidation, and other forms of electoral malpractices. Now, what is your overall assessment of this particular election? Let me start from Ayoyinka.
Thank you so much. It will be surprising today if the election has been peaceful, with the fact that even before the day of the election, we've been today, we saw extreme violence in Osun State. We have seen over 47 people have been killed in the last few months of the campaign in Osun. You know, and also the issue of the police having so much issues of the governor complaining about the CP, the IG say he has removed the CP, and so much problem. So with that level of violence during campaign, it's actually impossible for us to see that the election will not go out this way. And it is sad for our democracy. And this thing is happening because we have a state, we have a system which allows impunity. You cannot have a police who have thugs that they protect and thugs that they arrest, while some that they leave, and expect that this will not occur. Today, I've seen videos of people being arrested with guns. I've seen videos of people trying to snatch ballot boxes. You know, in fact, we have to give kudos to the people of Osun State, because some of the news I read, it was the citizens, they call them mob in the news, that were actually arresting these people that were doing vote buying and trying to instill violence, not even the police. You know, so we cannot continue to have an election where in 2026 we're talking about this and 2027 is already around the corner. This is just a single state where you have the entire police force, NSTDC, soldiers, INEC to just manage. And this is what we have today. It's sad.
Okay, Andrew, what's your own thought too as regards this election? I mean, the electoral umpire was meant to have been fully prepared for this, and the Commissioner of Police in the state also, before the election, affirmed that security personnel will be neutral and they would ensure that the process is violence-free. But then, this is what we have.
Okay, thank you for having me. So unfortunately, off-cycle elections are always marred with a lot of things that, you know, are not very pleasant, you know, to every Nigerian. Osun State is not in an exception to that. Okay, of course, to the build up to this day, we saw a lot of things that have happened, you know, and the question we ask is, how high is the stake, you know, that this build up to this day has led to a lot of violence and so many things that is happening today that they are having their elections. I don't think INEC has any excuse as to how ready they were for this election, you know, because I know that there are a lot of polling units that did not start accreditation on time. I mean, there were just so many logistical problems, you know, in this election. But I know also of the fact that the APC candidate and some other candidates have told their supporters to, you know, ensure that there's peaceful conduct, okay? And for us as a people, we want to have a situation where for every election that takes place, beyond anything, people should understand that we're first citizens and it is not a do or die affair. You know, elections at every point in time should be free and fair and also should be credible. And to that effect, I really think that, you know, the people, the candidates of every political party should speak to what they will do for the people and have the people believe in that which they have said they are going to do, without, you know, having all these thugs that are in different camps fighting each other and killing each other, you know, just because somebody has to rule the state or lead the state. You know, so for me, I think a lot still needs to be done when it comes to how our security agents and how the INEC gets ready and are prepared for elections. And voter education also needs to really, really be carried out so that people understand that for every contest, it is very important that peace and going about it in the right way is what should be obtainable, okay? So for me, I think we can do better as a people, you know, and I'm going to be suggesting and asking that for every agency that participates in this particular Osun election, there's a lot that needs to be done. And I mean, they need to x-ray a lot of things to see where they might have gone wrong to correct it for further election. Like the first speaker said, you know, we have 2027 election just few months from now. It is important for us to start getting all these things right so that we don't have a bigger problems, you know, by 2027.
You know, Nigerians keep asking the questions, when are we going to have an election that is violence-free, that things won't go wrong, that things would be, the exercise will be well managed so that we can reduce these issues of electoral fraud, voter intimidation and vote buying. But we are going to continue with this conversation. Of course, Professor Nnah and Martin, I'll come to you in a while. You need to stay with us. When we return, we'll continue on this. Many thanks for staying with us. We are still looking at Osun's gubernatorial election, even as we understand that sorting and counting of the ballots have commenced in the state. I'm still joined by Andrew Abu, Ayoyinka Oni, Professor Simeon Nnah, and of course Martin Obono. Now, Professor Nnah, let me come to you. Well, despite a relatively good voter turnout this time around in Osun, there are still reports of beavers, malfunctions, late commencement of voting exercise, and even accreditation. The accreditation exercise at some point had a bit of a challenge. Is it not something that INEC should have done better when it comes to deploying technology and ensuring that issues around electoral exercises in the country do not record any form of shoddiness or malfunctioning or problem?
That this election is going to be a litmus test for INEC. And I don't think they have performed to expectation. Why am I saying so? This is just an off-cycle election. If we are going to have this number of challenges in an off-cycle election, when we are having an election that covers the whole nation, what is going to happen? Your guess is as good as mine. Now, the build-up to this election was so bad that some of us had our hearts in our mouths because nobody knew what was going to happen the next day. People were killed almost on a daily basis, and even somebody came to say that people should be killed in Elisha if anybody of a particular political extraction comes to Elisha, he should be killed, and stuff like that. So the build-up to this election was so worrisome. Now, today in the election proper, some of the fears still emanated. Well, there was a situation, it's alleged, that a policeman was shooting on air and carted away with ballot box and what have you. And the state governor alleged that that police officer came from Rivers State. Can you imagine that? In an off-cycle election, a situation where we have 15,000 policemen in one state, 30 commissioners, one DIG, one AIG and one DIG in one state, and still we're having this level of, people getting injured and getting maimed and what have you. Even last night, there were reports of people being adopted in their houses. Because you can't say it's arrest by 1 a.m. It's adoption. The question I am asking is, what are we? Where are we going from here? Because we are talking of state police, and the police DIG said that Amateku should not be part of this election. My question, and you know why I'm worried? It's not that they ask them not, they call them non-state actors. How can you call a body that the state assembly, brought into being, and the governor signed it into law, and it was recruited by government, funded by government, and you are calling them non-state actors? No, it beats my imagination. And you said they should not be part of the election. But all the other people that came are federal agencies. What does that suggest for you? Recall, I don't have a dog in this fight because I'm neither a member of any political party, neither am I from us. So at the end of the day, you see, we have to be very careful the way we handle things here. And that brings to fore their so-called state police with all the paraphernalia of office, majority coming from the federal government.
All right.
I still have my doubts. Honestly, I do. Because this Amateku is what is supposed to metamorphose to a state police in some of these Western states. In fact, that was what they had in mind.
All right, Professor. Yeah, Professor Nnah, thank you so much. Now, we need to quickly take our correspondent, Mercy Babajide, who is standing by to give us an update. Mercy, of course, we understand that collation of results is ongoing as we speak in Osun State. But then what updates do you have for us from where you are?
Okay, from where I'm at, some polling units are still trying to, of course, get their results together. We couldn't stop at where the collation center is because the crowd was overflowing, but I don't know if we have videos. Right to my left, you can still see a couple of crowds. We cannot pan there. Okay, right to my left, we can see a lot of persons there, and that was where we were earlier today, where there was a mistake from the INEC presiding officer who wanted to write 212, but rather wrote 12, and the people there actually went all out, and they kept on shouting "ole ole," and "ole ole" in English means thief. So now let's pan to someone who is here to, of course, speak on what it was like from his own center. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
What's your name?
My name's Emmanuel Ayoyinka.
Have you
popularly known as Genesis 007?
Okay. Have you voted?
Yeah, I voted. This is my PVC. You can look at it.
Okay. How was the voting at your end?
Wow. Here in Osogbo, Ward 4, Osogbo local government, the voting was, free and fair. There was no rancor, no fighting. We all voted peacefully. And so far so good, I would actually, here in Osogbo local government, the security personnel, they did their job professionally. They were so, neutral. There was nothing like police intimidation in our own unit, because I voted at Unit 28 behind the Nnah market. And this area that you are is Osun Ward 4. All over the units in this Osun Ward 4, the voting went peacefully. No rancor, no snatching of ballot boxes or whatever whatsoever.
All right, thank you very much. Well, you've heard right there from our guest who said it was rancor-free from Osogbo area, just at the back of an international market there. But then we are still waiting for all the results to be uploaded on IREV, and then collation will start. But for now, we're still in Osogbo, Osun State. We'll probably still move to some town close to Osogbo later on to see how far they've gone there. Over to you in the studio.
Yeah, so before I let you go, I know that the governor of the state and some other party stalwarts told their members that they should stay and follow the ballot boxes and the results, invariably telling them to defend their votes. So would you say that people have, in terms of what you've observed so far, can you describe the situation in and around where you are? Probably people have gone back home, or they are at the collation center monitoring the process.
Okay, I would like my camera guy to pan to the left. You would still see a lot of persons by my left. Like I said earlier on, before we went on a quick break, we just decided to stop over at one of the polling units where there was serious rancor. And what was the basis of the issue? They said they had counted their votes, and a particular party had 212 and another party had 158. And when it was time to record this vote, the INEC officer recorded 012 as opposed to 212 for that particular party. But then, luckily for this party, the party agent noticed this and quickly called the attention of the people there, and they had to count all over again. He had to take the intervention of the police to actually come there and make things settle a bit, because the people were not having it. So that puts us in light that people are there for accountability, and they are willing to stand by their vote till the very end.
All right, thank you so much, Mercy. We'll circle back to you, of course, in our subsequent bulletins. So, Martin, let's talk to you now as regards our correspondent, that is Mercy, our engagement with a voter who seems quite satisfied with how the election had gone, and of course, your overall assessment of the gubernatorial election in the state. How would you describe it?
The election so far has been quite peaceful. The process has been quite peaceful so far across board. There hasn't been, there have been a few incidences left and right, but the incidences are not as much as the kind of incidences that should affect the overall outcome of the election. So if you look at our dashboard, as at the last time I checked, we have had about 39 incidences that were reported. Those incidences range from vote buying, voter suppression, delayed electoral materials arrival, and what have you. And most of these were spread across all the local government areas in Osun State. But in all, it's a very commendable process. It's been peaceful so far. And we hope that the peace that we've experienced in Osun will remain until after the announcement of the results is done.
So does it mean that issues around vote buying, intimidation, voter suppression, things like this that we usually record during Nigeria's electoral cycle are situations we cannot do without? Is that what it means, Martin?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Martin, I can hear you. So I said issues around vote buying, voter intimidation, voter suppression, violence. Are these things that we actually cannot do without? Because when you look at the pattern, it keeps happening in every election cycle in the country.
Because of the level of poverty in Nigeria, there would always be vote buying in our electoral system. Except there will be people who devise newer means through which they will definitely buy votes, even if we are able to prevent or enforce the law to make sure that there is no vote buying in our system. That's on the one hand. But once you also have an election is a contestation. So it's a contestation between two or more political parties and people. So people would always want to use violence or employ techniques that they would use to oppress and suppress their opponents and supporters of their opponents. So it is very important to note that we would only, with time, just metamorphose our democracy will definitely grow, but we may not be able to rid that of our systems within the shortest time possible.
Okay, so I wonder how soon or how well our democracy and electoral cycle will morph into something more credible and violence-free. Ayoyinka, let me come to you now. Talking about violence, now the Osun State governor had alleged, after casting his votes, that the police, colluded with political thugs to intimidate voters, despite the fact that the CP made assurances that security personnel in the state will be neutral. There was even about 15,000 deployments to according to some other reports, 25,000 security personnel in the state. So how would you react to this sort of allegation?
That a police that was not neutral during campaign will now suddenly become neutral during the election process itself. I have not just observed the election, I have been involved to the highest level, at least in Lagos State. And what happened basically is what we call the police officers working for the highest bidder. That's basically what happened. Any resistance you see against wrongdoings at the polling unit are majorly done by the people. And when the police officers realize that the people are not going to accept this, they have no option than to calm the system. In other cases, they will now find a way to either cut away the INEC officers and not, or even protect thugs. So we should get to a level to understand that our police system have not helped us in getting free and fair election. And this is not because democracy is slow or democracy needs a particular button to grow. It's just because we have not been able to get responsible people in leadership. That is the problem. When this issue of violence started, what I would have expected from the leader of the entire forces of the country, who is the the president, is to call for peace and calm and instruct the IG, the CP to go there and do a good job. But if you realize, there was no body language from the presidency at all. The body language that we got was the body language that APC should go there and go and get that power. Because, of course, we know that the president needs Southwest to be totally cornered. So if APC can win today, it's going to be a plus for him. So you saw the cousin of the president, Electoral, making statement. You saw the senator. It is the suppression by Senator Fadaunsi was not done by mistake. It was planned. It is suppression. When you go and you say stated live that people can go ahead and kill another political party, you know, and people were recording you and you said you do not care, you should know that that person was not trying to pretend. That's what they do privately and publicly. So when the Senate are not doing the right thing, the lawmakers, and the president is not speaking right, how do you expect the police to behave? So it's an issue of leadership that will continue to bite us. And that's why I must commend the people of Osun that are standing, and they should continue to stand for a peaceful election. Vote buying also can be stopped if the police, the EFCC, are prepared to do their job.
All right, thank you very much. Now, I'll come to Andrew in a bit, but we need to take one of our correspondents, Omolola Ololade, who's also standing by in Osun State, and she'll be telling us more. I want to believe you're at the Collation Center. Omolola, tell us, what's the update?
I'm presently at, the Collation Center here in Osogbo, the INEC headquarters. As you all know that, voting has ended across all polling units here in Osogbo, and, many of them have, were waiting at the Collation Center, media houses, all of us setting up here to take the exercise live on air. But, if you can look closely, you see that the hall is empty, and that's majorly because we do not have officials from the INEC party agent here. They are all having their meetings to ensure that the exercise goes on smoothly.
All right. Of course, let's talk about the people now. I'm talking about the party agents. How optimistic are they? Are they still around? Do you also have people or members of other party right there waiting for the process to kickstart? That is the collation proper, or you would say that probably some of them have left the premises?
Yes, well, as for the party agent, many of them, as you know, many of them are still at the voting unit. Many of them have just left the, polling centers rather. And, some of them, while we did speak with them at the polling unit, they did mention that so they are optimistic about their various candidates. And, many of them mentioned, many of them talked about the discrepancies in, the presence of other party agents. I'm talking about, for instance, that's when we were at Ejigbo local government area, saying that the ADC party agent was not present at one of the polling units. Many of these things have been cause for concern for this party agent.
But largely, would you say that they're satisfied with the conduct of the election so far?
I mean, Dapo, to be sincere with you, it's a mixed reaction from different party agents. While some are saying that, that they were satisfied depending on the polling unit where they voted, others are saying that they are not so satisfied. But I believe the, result here today will determine that.
Thank you so much, Olola. There's actually Lekon Obanjo, not Dapo, but I appreciate the fact that you're able to share the details with us. All right, so let me quickly come to Andrew before we wrap up on this. Now, how would you react to what our correspondent has said? Of course, the party agent seems satisfied with the conduct of the election in some certain areas. But then one fundamental issue that Ayoyinka raised was the fact that political actors, a serving senator, would make a statement that is being deemed as instigating violence in an election like this. Leaders that are meant to calm the nerves and steady the ship in situations where there might be chaos, make utterances that might, stir up, aggravation and all that. That is not good for Nigeria's democracy. But then what lessons do you think we can pick from this narrative and the conduct of this election?
Nigerian must condemn that statement by the senator, okay? we want to have a Nigeria where our election cycle will always be peaceful, credible, and free and fair. Okay, from 3,700 polling units in Osun State, I think it will be almost impossible for us to have peaceful election across the 3,700 polling units. But largely, at least from what we can hear from people on ground, it is obvious that majorly we've had more peace in most of the polling units, and of course there are pockets of violence or lack of INEC being on ground to provide, voting materials as at the time they are supposed to be on ground to do what they are supposed to do. So we need to do more. I think voter education is very, very important, okay? And I know that also that we need to tell ourselves the truth as Nigerians, that as long as we have situations where people still buy votes or sell votes and people still buy, we'll always keep having issues with our electoral processes, okay? And I think, again, the government need to really look at consequences when it comes to people who are engaged in violence during elections. It's very important that when people know that there are consequences, that you can actually be locked in a jail if you go against, what is expected of you on an election day or build up to an election. I think it would deter to a very large extent the people that perpetrate this carnage. Yeah. For want of a better word. So I think largely we need to do more as a people, voter education, and at this point I'll be calling on the civil society, I'll be calling on all the people that are within that election ecosystem to be able to educate the people and see how we can provide solutions that can help to better our electioneering processes.
All right, Martin, let me quickly come to you. So what is the most important lesson we should take from here, even as we just look over our shoulders as regards the general elections in January? Martin, can you hear me? So, Martin, I just asked, I said, what is the most critical lesson you think we should take from this gubernatorial election in Osun State as we tilt towards the general elections in January?
So it's too early to call because the elections are basically still, the results compilation are basically ongoing. But if I'm going to say one of the key lessons is the preparedness of INEC. The INEC, the REC who came to conduct the elections in Osun was very, very professional, and she was very prompt in the sense that she distributed materials on time, regardless of the fact that the materials were printed very late due to the fact that the Court of Appeal judgment affected the inclusion of SDP in the entire result sheet processes. So they had to reprint. So she was quite professional in terms of distribution of those materials, and the materials got to the various local governments quite on time up until the early hours of this morning. So in terms of that, the election, the logistics of the election has been so successful, and we hope that other recs will take this into consideration. However, one of the most critical parts that we are yet to see is to see how the election results management goes. Because from what we can see so far, about 50 to 60% of results have come in, and especially on IREV. And INEC needs to also improve on its technology in terms of IREV, how results, from the time results are taken and posted on IREV. From our own estimation and calculation, we have seen that it takes about 11 minutes. That is not fast enough. And that is why on our own portal, the iReports INEC, it was easy for us to beat INEC to the first results that came in. The first result that came in for INEC was about 3-4 3:49 p.m.
Yeah.
But on our own portal, the results came in at 3:33 p.m. That's about 16 minutes difference. So INEC needs to improve its technology, or whatever technology it's using, to get results and the result management process. So for us, until the final whistle is blown, we cannot therefore say that these are the lessons we need to learn, and this is the thing that INEC needs to do correctly, because they might have gotten all other processes right, but the result management is always a very big problem for INEC. Maybe because of the human elements and the political interests that are always interested in the various elections results. That is why it becomes a big issue to manage that process. But until the final whistle is blown, until an announcement is made and a victor is announced, we cannot basically say what the main issue will be, and then comparing that with the results that we are also getting, because so far the results we have gotten on our platform from the citizens IREV, and in comparison with the results that have come in on the INEC IREV, the results seem to be okay, and there has not been any form of discrepancies or mutilation of results or hanky-panky.
All right, thank you very much.
At the conclusion of the entire process, we will have 100 over 100 results comparison with what INEC IREV has, and also what INEC has generated so far.
Definitely, we'll wait and see. Professor Nnah, what about you? What do you think, most especially as we are looking at the 2027 general elections?
Well, our fears are beginning to assuaged for a little bit, and I will tell you why I'm saying that. You have discovered from what the first speaker said that our security agents are not up to speed with what is happening. I think we need maybe a retraining on election handling, because the way our Nigerian police is doing things, I don't think is the best. However, I think they are looking at the body language of the president. You see, what the president is saying does not match his body language. Again, and that is why some of these things are happening. And in a country where you don't punish offenders, what do you expect? You expect other people to go ahead and do what they like. After the senator made that pronouncement, we still have a member of House that was coming into Osun and was arrested by naval officers, and they saw ammunition in his vehicle. So what has happened? Has anything happened since then? We've not had anything.
So basically, it's about taking decisive steps to make sure that our electoral cycle is credible, defaulters are punished, and we have a wholesome process, because, of course, it's a very sensitive time to go by. Thank you so much, Professor Simeon, Nnah, Ayoyinka Oni, Andrew Abu, and, of course, Martin Obono, for sharing your thoughts with us on the news.